I'll talk about this time. I want to talk about a different topic, a slightly different topic. It's always, everything's related and everything, but I want to talk about a different like part of my life, like not, but it's all related. I mean, like a lot of my mental health issues were about reality and that, and people didn't understand that, and I didn't explain it properly, and I didn't even know how to explain it properly. Alexithymia is a real thing. It steals your voice. It steals your ability to get help, or to get any kind of support or any kind of solidarity from anyone for anything you're going through, because you don't know how to explain it to anyone, so no, they don't know, and then they make assumptions, and some of the assumptions are dehumanizing. And anyway, it's terrible. Or they think there's just nothing there because you don't know how to explain, so they think you're just not all there, and that's just not a humane thing to think about yourself, or to know that others are, around you, are thinking about you, and nobody else really knows who you are or that you're all there, and that's not a good thing. But anyway, that's a different story, kind of. What I want to talk about in this one is, well, you know that I live in Montreal. Some of you do, because I said so in various places, including in some of these videos. So, like, I want to talk about what it's like to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and anyone really, at the Douglas Mental Health University Institute. Now, the first time I ever went there, for any reason, either to visit someone who was an inpatient there, or to be like an outpatient or an inpatient there, or to apply to see a psychiatrist or psychologist there, or to for any reason, to go to a group therapy there, anything like that. First time I ever set foot on their grounds was in 2009, when now I'd been here in their various cities, various towns, and then I came back to Montreal. And the reasons why I was seeing a psychiatrist and psychologist and all that, I mean, it's all complex, and it's just so ridiculously complex that people think that there's either no reason, or that it's stupid reasons, or that it's really bad, horrible reasons, or that is for reasons that can't be helped. So why am I even bothering, and why is anyone even bothering to try with me, or anything like that? And it's all dehumanizing to think that, but I can't control and shouldn't control, what others think, because that would be trying to control people's minds. That's not okay. They need to come to their own conclusions, genuinely own conclusions, which they will eventually, that everybody's a human being, but anyway, that's another whole tangent I was going on, which is related, but, and, so I was just, I'll get into why, in other videos, because it's a long kind of thing, and many reasons. A lot of them were spiritual. A lot of them were from the way people treated me, and including an ex of mine, and relatives, and and people who should have known better, who were in certain positions in society, who should have just known better than to treat me in certain ways, people who were not friends or relatives or neighbors of me, but who were supposed to be helping me, people at either at school or at any mental health facility that I ever tried to get help for depression at, or for anxiety at, and so sometimes it just made it way worse, because it was I either was just treated dehumanizingly in some way, or they just refused, which was dehumanizing in itself, or because they think you're just not worth saving, or whatever, or that's how it felt anyway. And sometimes it was that attitude they had, they think you're just a hopeless case, you're too complex, go die, or whatever you're gonna do, but don't come here and bother us anymore, kind of attitude. They never said that to me. They would either lie about it, or they just try and circumvent it, or they would just pretend that they were gonna do something, but then they give me the runaround. And sometimes the runaround was they were lazy, it had nothing to me, nothing on me. But other times, but anyway, that's just for other times. Now, what I want to talk about in this one, I'm sorry I keep going off on tangents, but I guess that's just something that I like to do, and if people like it, then that's a good thing, I guess. But okay, well, I have a psychiatrist at the Douglas now, who's just prescribing my antidepressants, and my other one, it's an antipsychotic, but I'm using it as a mood stabilizer. I'm bipolar and stuff, but it's Abilify, and the other one is Celexa, the antidepressant. And they're great, but because the Celexa and Abilify, but they're the problem is I kind of just feel like they're kind of doing something to me that's making me not able to think so much, and maybe it's just in my head, I don't know, but that's just another thing anyway. But So what it's like to, like, deal with the Douglas. I mean, there's different departments, obviously. So like there's like, the psychosis, like, department, and the, like, depression department, and the like bipolar department and everything. So it depends on who your psychiatrist is with and everything, and if you have a psychologist who they're with the um they're with their own department, I think. I'm not sure like how that works, but um I had a psychologist at the Douglas in 2016. Actually, like, I was already on the list, like, and I finally was put on the list because I finally had a psychiatrist who, was willing to put me on the list, because the one before was totally, like, acting totally dehumanizingly towards me. His name, and I'm going to drop a name here, I'm going to give his real name, and if anybody wants to sue my ass, well, guess what? I'll sue theirs right back, for, acting dehumanizingly towards me. I mean, I have the right to tell the truth, and there's no, evidence that it's slander, because it's not. It's the truth. And this guy acted dehumanizingly towards me, and his name, I don't know if he's there anymore. I've been told that he's no longer working there. I'm glad he doesn't, because I don't want him to be dehumanizing other people. And I know, and if your experience with him was great, then that's great. But not everybody's was, and that doesn't mean that they're lying. And maybe you just got lucky with him. Maybe he just liked your ass. Maybe he liked your face. I don't know. I mean, he's human, you're human. It's not that he's just a horrible, that anybody is a horrible, all across the board bad person. Nobody is. But he just treated me very dehumanizingly, and he treated my son very dehumanizingly. When my ex came up and with my son to visit Montreal, and, they came to one of my appointments with me to, renew my meds, and he looked at my son like he was a fucking science project. I'll never forget it. He wasn't a person, but a science project. He was curious, and this guy, like, knew that, I was on the autism spectrum, and he was the type that would dehumanize people who were on the autism spectrum, because he did not like autistic people, and he was supposedly a specialist, like, who was very familiar with that kind of thing, and that makes it even sicker. His name is Philippe Lagex, and from France, and people, like to generalize people from France who are psychiatrists as, like, really arrogant and everything, and I've met two like that, but I don't generalize. I do not want anyone generalizing here, like if they can help it. I mean, I'm not going to tell people what to do, but you know what I mean. But because I don't want to generalize myself. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't want to generalize anyone myself. I'm trying not to anyway. I'm going to slip up, and sometimes I'm going to dehumanize people. And like, I hope that when I do go there, because everybody goes there sometimes, nobody's above it. Everybody goes there, and when we do go there, sometimes we do need a black eye. Sometimes we do need one of our friends to punch us in the fucking eye, to remind us who we are, and like remind us that nobody deserves dehumanization, and maybe not literally punch us in the eye, but like, you know what I mean. But this guy Lajex. Now, I didn't like him a moment, and he just saw me with all of his disdain just the moment that we met in 2009. So I'm glad that he hasn't been my psychiatrist in many years, and they wouldn't even let me switch. It's like, they have this, like, they claim that you have the right to choose who your psychiatrist is and that, but I mean, there's a limited pool of them, obviously, so you can't always do that. But they won't even like switch you, even they won't even try, they won't even like give you the option of trying, and that's wrong. It's like they're thinking they know better than you what's good for you, and that's sick. It's messed up, because this guy said disparaging things about autistic people, like, I don't really want to get into it. It wasn't like, you deserve to die or anything like that, but he did act like I did not deserve to be helped for my depression, like I did not need it, because I wasn't enough of a person, to be feeling any kind of depression, because, oh, come on, autistic people don't have feelings. It was just his attitude that he gave off, that it was very obvious that that was what he was thinking, kind of. At least kind of, And like, he was just finding it some sort of freak show that me and my, ex at the time, my ex, who was the father of my son, that we were together, and we were both autistic, and we met on this autistic site that we had, full of autistic people, and he found it kind of interesting in this kind of science project-y, oh, look at those freaks kind of way, And it was sick. It was like, he doesn't belong helping people. I mean, not helping anyone like us anyway, because all he does is dehumanize us. I mean, the way he looked at my son, like he was a science project, it was terrible. And I didn't know how to even explain any of this, because alexithymia steals your fucking voice. So, it really does. And now I know how to explain things, and maybe it's too late to do so, and maybe I'll get shit for doing so, or being seen as, a liar or something because I didn't mention it before. But I didn't mention it before because I wasn't even able to mention it before. I didn't even have the words to. Just because I have the vocabulary doesn't always mean that I know how to use it 24/7. And that's a fact of humanity, not just, alexithymia. But alexithymia makes it worse sometimes, way worse. I mean, to the point where it's not livable worse. And, yeah, but anyway, this guy, Lejex, anyway, I'm glad he hasn't been, my psychiatrist or anyone's psychiatrist there for like a very long time because he's left. But, and because like I was switched and I had to end up hospitalized in order to switch psychiatrists. It was so sick. But like, and then I was with Dr. Farquhar. He was okay, I mean, sometimes he'll leave you to suffer and he'll let you, stew in your own juice. Like, sometimes, I mean, most of them do, they're human, but at the same time, they should, I don't know, like at least ask, like, hey, are you sure, you don't want to talk about something, or you don't want to be referred to a psychologist or something. And I know there's like not enough psychologists to go around, but Lejex wouldn't even like refuse to refer me to a psychologist. He refused to even prescribe me any antidepressants, anything, because he didn't think that there was anything wrong with me, because he didn't think I was human enough to, be psychologically suffering, or to have had anything happen to me, or to have had any, he even like tried to say that my real problem was that I just wasn't functional. And it was so dehumanizing. And he was trying to, like, just refer me out of there, and never, didn't care, didn't think he would rather use the resources on somebody he thought would, would benefit from humanization, unlike me, and like who would, actually, deserve it more because they were some sort of more productive person or something. And that opens a whole debate on what is productive. Is paper pushing productive? Is, what is productive and what's not, And this guy was just so wrong to us, but anyway, and on more than one occasion, like, he refused to, refer me to any support group, to group therapy. He refused to refer me to, a psychologist, and he refused to even prescribe anything for my depression because he didn't believe that I was human enough to, need it. He didn't believe I was human enough to feel anything, I don't think, honestly. And I'm not the only one that noticed this about him, either who was a patient or who just saw how he interacted with me. And it's not okay. And it is not okay. And I was not okay when I was dealing with him. And I was not feeling okay when I was dealing with him. And I often left his office feeling worse, and I didn't know how to explain that or even express it. It was horrible. But like now back to, James Farquhar, rather than like just continuing to, to bitch about Lejex, but like, he deserves to be bitched about. But now James Farquhar, he was like way better. At least he like, he saw me as a person rather than, as some sort of like fake person that was programmed to pretend to be a person. And Lejex was so wrong, it wasn't even funny. And now James Farquhar, like, at least he didn't treat me like I was that. I mean, obviously he's made mistakes. They all make mistakes. I mean, even the best ones make mistakes. I mean, I had a great psychologist there, like Michael Bodner. That's his real name. I mean, and he was great. He moved away, so like, and I had like 35 sessions with him, which is the usual, everybody has, because eventually James Farquhar and the social worker I had who was dealing with James Farquhar's patients. Her name is Melissa David, and they actually saw fit for me to see a psychologist. And yeah, I kind of had to like advocate a bit for myself and complain a bit, but eventually they did, refer me. And because like Lejex and everyone working with him didn't even see me as a person. They saw me as less of a person. They saw me as less of a person even than the other patients, because the other patients at least, oh well, they at least deserve and have a chance and need to, a chance to, exist, and to, not, to not just suffer for the rest of their lives. And well, whatever, who cares about you, and like, you don't deserve it. You wouldn't benefit from it anyway. You're too far gone, too just dumb, too, not even all there. It was very dehumanizing. And but like anyway, back to James Farquhar. Now, he would sometimes leave people, and I mean, most of them do. I mean, most of them would leave you in psychological distress sometimes, or some of them would even put you in psychological distress. But one thing I can say about James Farquhar is at least he would never, from what I know, he did not like to leave people to physically suffer. So like, even if you didn't need Cogentin, like even if you told him you didn't need it, he would still prescribe it, for if you were on antipsychotic medication, that caused akathisia as a side effect, where like you stand up, you sit down, you stand up, you sit down, you pace back and forth, you can't sit still, can't stand still. Half your muscles want to stand up, the other half want to sit down. Like you want to stand up and sit down at the same time, but you can't because that's a physical impossibility. It's torture. Well, I mean, I've had that problem before, but I don't have it anymore. But I'm with the stuff I'm on, but like he'll still prescribe cogentin anyway. He doesn't want people to, end up, even if you swear you don't need them, then he'll still prescribe them, and that's a good practice because at least he, cares enough about you to know that you're human enough to actually, have pain and to actually, well, in case you do, just take it anyway. I mean, I don't take them, I have a supply of them because like he's prescribed them even when I, told him like, no, it's okay. Like I don't need them, but he still kept prescribing them. And that's a way better practice, than, refusing them to somebody, claiming they're just faking being in pain. Like what in the holy hell? I'm sorry. My husband has actually had psychiatrists where, they've claimed that he was faking being in pain. In other words, that he was some sort of, or even faking having feelings where, they thought he was some sort of, I don't know, machine that was programmed to pretend it was human. And that is just so wrong. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget how Lejek looked at my son. Like, it was terrible. And I'll never forget how he acted. He was trying to see if he was one of us. And it was so disgusting. It was like, my son was 2 years old. And he was kind of looked a bit scared of him instinctively, and it was... But anyway, then there was a few others I had, some as an inpatient, some as an outpatient. Because I was inpatient in the Douglas a few times. Well, more than a few times, maybe 5 times. But I have a friend who was in there about like 12 times. Like, he was like a frequent flyer there and everything. And he's actually my friend who's my roommate now. But like, he was been in there like, I don't know, maybe 20 times. I don't know. Like, but he's been in there a lot. And he and I were in there together. That's how we met, like in 2010. We were on the bipolar unit, CPC2. Which is the second floor of the Community Psychiatric Center building, the CPC, at the Douglas. And because there's multiple buildings at the Douglas, there's about 50 buildings at the Douglas. Some of them big ones, some of them small ones, some of them kind of normal sized ones. None of them too big, but they're all, some of them have like inpatient units, some of them have outpatient, offices, like where you just go. And then other places where there's group therapy places, and then there's the research building, and and they even have their own morgue, and, not many people die there, but when they do, well, it's usually just for research, where they, people who donate themselves, they get like, dissected there, their brains mostly, because it's like, it's a psychiatry place, so they would do the brain, and they wouldn't really do somebody else, any other parts of somebody there, and then there was, because... there was actually, and this is something that I've never seen myself. This is a disclaimer. I haven't seen this myself, but there was another patient there who told me that he was walking around in the tunnels underneath the Douglas, and he found an area. He looked in a room and he saw a bunch of rats that were being held captive there for like experiments or whatever, and they had the top of their head cut off. And there was like a plug in the top of their head, like an electric plug. And I've seen that with cats, like in like a world issues class, like in grade 12. Like I saw, I saw that like done with cats, like in like a video they showed us. It was so wrong. It was terrible. It was, and then I'm thinking this is wrong, but yet I was repressing it, So it was like I was trying to. It was so wrong of me to just repress it and try and make sense of it and make excuses for it, because I didn't want to be complicit in something like that by, using services from a place that would do something like that to animals. But at the same time, I don't know. It was just this cognitive dissonance I had where I don't know if it's true, but if it is, it's terrible, and I don't want any part of it, and I don't want to be supporting it in any way, including taking services that the government is paying them to, to do, where, they're getting funding from the government because of me somehow, even if they would have gotten that funding anyway. I don't know how it works. Or otherwise I would have, I don't know, maybe taken some sort of stand, maybe not. I don't know, because I don't even know if it's true. I mean, I didn't see it myself, and I didn't see any footage of it, so I do not know. And maybe I could easily find out. I don't know, but I probably could easily find out. Because, I mean, it's probably all over the internet somewhere or something. And I mean, I think they even might mention it on their own site, so it's not like it's like some classified, CIA thing. But like anyway, this guy, the guy that told me about it, the patient that told me about it was he was an inpatient. I was visiting a friend who was an inpatient, and he was actually a friend of that friend. And anyway, this guy was just like, yeah, but at least it was inhumane, but at least it's like for the good of humans, and therefore I support it. And at the time I tried to support it myself, like psychologically. I mean, I'm not a good person. Like I mean, sometimes I'm not. I mean, I wasn't, especially back then. I mean, I'm a better person than I was, but I just do not feel good about that. Cognitive dissonance I had at the time, where I was trying to make excuses for somebody that would torture animals, and that's not even okay. Like I would rather I mean, yeah, if it saves human lives, but then but then that your life is being saved because somebody was tortured. It's like Mengele. It's like saying that he, saved more lives than he, tortured and murdered, and that's not. No, 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 no. We are not doing this. No, we're not going there. Um, no, he didn't even try to be ethical, and even if he did, he would have failed. That would have it was still a failure, and that was just not excusable. There are some things that are not excusable. Every person is forgivable, but not what they do. Like we've all done unforgivable things. We've all done stuff that should never be forgiven. Even if we as people should be forgiven, it's we've all done it. We've all done like dehumanizing stuff towards like ourselves, denying the sentience of other beings and all that. But and then, but anyway, I'm not going to go talking about moralizing about this anymore because I've already done it here. So I'm going to just move on from now for now. So, because I can just talk about this anytime. But anyway, the whole point of this video is what it's like to see a psychiatrist and stuff at the Douglas and that. And then there's the inpatient, stuff where, because I was an inpatient there a few times on CPC2, the bipolar unit basically. Because and that's where I met my friend, whom like I live with as a roommate right now. So like we were both patients there. We were both 22 years old, and I found it like I had a crush on him at the time, and I was feeling so guilty about that because like I was still like I was hoping to get back with my son's father and everything, and that was just like not a like not a good thing, and it made me cry sometimes. Knowing like this being torn in two thing, but now I don't have a crush on, that person. I'm married to another guy that like is like my soulmate and everything, that I totally like I'm with and totally would never ever replace. But, I would never cheat on, nothing like that, and he wouldn't do that to me either. And, both of us know that, if one of us dies, then the other never ever being with ever again. No, no, no. That's not even okay. In our case anyway, me and Teddy, my husband Teddy, who actually lives in the United States right now, but that's another thing. But and he's hoping to come here. But anyway, then there was like there was this friend of ours. I'll call her. I'll call her. Well, maybe I should just I should talk about our friends there like in another video, because this is more about like what it's like from the like about like how they how they do things, so maybe I should have another video about like the people there whom we know like as other patients and that, so I'll do that some other time. But like there were psychiatrists who just didn't give a shit, and then there were others that gave a shit, but they were very busy. And there was one, her name was Catherine Steger, and she was great with me. Like once I was in the emergency room as an inpatient there, and like my psychiatrist, psychologist, and social worker were all on vacation, so like it was like I had nobody to talk to, and ended up in the emergency room because of issues with my meds that I had no one to talk to about. It was like summer and they were all on vacation, but like so she ended up being my psychiatrist temporarily. And I said, oh, but I feel so horrible because I'm not doing good for the universe, I'm not doing good for the world, I'm not doing good. And then she said, but if you feel but if you feel like basically she didn't like say it this way, but like if you feel like shit, how can you how can you like help the universe? The universe will thank you for and be happy with you, and the universe will be better, will feel better for when I feel better, like when you feel better, then that makes the universe, that's what's beneficial to the universe, because then you're better for the universe, both just in your energy and in what you do and everything. And she told me that, and that made me feel so much better just hearing that, and from a psychiatrist besides. And it made me like, it gave me a bit more faith in like psychiatry, and like they're not all a bunch of like, avowed atheists, where, well, not, I mean, even if there are atheists, they're not like a bunch of avowed anti-spiritual, totally, oh, you're delusional if you're spiritual types, where they believe in spirituality still, and they'll like, believe you about spirituality. And it's not like totally about like where, they think you're, because there was a social worker there at the group home, La Vinci House, in 2014, when I was there at the group home, living there for a while, at La Vinci House. And there was a social worker there, who believed that like everybody who believed in spirituality was, and he would force it. He would enforce that kind of belief on people. He wouldn't let people. He wouldn't really respect like, like people's spirituality. He would just like tell people flat out that they were delusional and psychotic for believing in spiritual stuff. And he was kind of in denial even about me being a spiritual person. He was hoping kind of that I was an atheist, because he kind of resonated with me, but he was hoping that I was a supposed rational person, aka somebody who never ever believed in spirituality. But he was getting his hopes up a little too much, just like I was, about him possibly believing in something, spiritual. So, anyway, that's just, and he was, during one of the groups, he was like telling people that they were like, literally telling people that their belief in telepathy was because they were psychotic. And he was, and he was telling people how to identify, like how to not, like, to not tell people, well, like to not believe, that there was anything positive about their mental experience or about their mental, state. So basically he was telling people to feel like shit about being psychotic. He was telling people, yeah, well, psychosis causes a lot of suffering. And he was telling this to people who were fucking psychotic, like who had like psychotic disorders. But that wasn't all of who they were. But it was some of who they were too, and it was like he's telling them to feel shit about part of who they are, what they identify as who they are. And it's like, that's not even okay. And I was trying to explain it in like a diplomatic way, and so were they, and they were being more civil than he was. And that was just sad. And we had a few debates like that, like in the groups and stuff. There are not many, because people were either too doped up, or they were too, smoking drugs all day at La Vinci. They were, as one, nurse there put it, well, they smoked drugs all day. They banged their heads and they screamed the house down. I mean, and she was telling me, actually, she was telling this in the context of, you don't do that. You're one of the better behaved ones here, but like, it doesn't make me better than anyone, because, I mean, I didn't have a lot of the problems they had. I mean, they were like, suffering from, some of them, brain damage from like drugs they did and stuff. And some of them were, some of them like they had psychotic disorders from drugs they did. And then others, it was just, they were so traumatized they ended up doing drugs, or they ended up, psychotic, or both, or they ended up, doing drugs and becoming psychotic from the drugs, or they had a like tendency to be psychotic, and then the drugs made it worse, or, or they, or even like if they didn't do drugs, they would like drink, or like, became alcoholics. Then and some of them, like, they came to the psychotic disorders short-term unit, like, well, they went to, most of them were from like, before they were at La Vinci, they were at Burgess 1, the short-term psychotic disorders unit, where you stayed for like a month or so, and then you went, like, you left after, if you were, okay to leave or whatever. So they, that's where they held people who, voluntary and involuntary, the usual, but like if they were like psychotic, having a, episode that was psychotic, if they're having an episode that's mood, that would be CPC 2, where I was. And some of the other people at La Vinci had been from there, and some of them were from Burgess 1. And the ones on Burgess 1, I remember one of the staff there that at La Vinci was trying to, convince one of the other staff not to send one of the patients at La Vinci back to Burgess 1, because they come in with a psychotic problem, and they come out with a psychotic problem and a drug problem, because there was a big drug problem on like Burgess 1. Everybody knew that like the place you went to get drugs at the Douglas, like the illicit drugs, was behind Burgess, and like a few other places too. But like and like one woman who was on Burgess 1 would tell me, she told me that in the smoking room they were just standing around in a circle smoking a joint. Or actually, no, it wasn't a joint. It was, they were smoking crack. and it was right underneath the camera, like in the ceiling or up high on the wall or something, and they were just openly smoking crack. And then another time, and you would open the door to the smoking room, and it would just, the smell of pot would just waft out, and it would just overpower you. And I mean, nobody really smoked pot on the unit on CPC 2, but they would just go out to smoke pot. I remember one girl came to CPC 2, came onto the unit in a panic, said to me, we were both inpatients in there, and she said to me, "Oh my God, I just smoked pot behind Burgess with this guy who's staying on Burgess 1, but now I'm worried that the staff here are not going to let me out again because they're going to, smell it on me. So how do I, hide it? They're going to see me like looking high and everything." Well, I told her, well, the best I could do, was tell her, well, just like take a shower, get the smell of pot off you, and then just like put on clean clothes, go and lay down in bed with the lights off so that they can't see your eyes. And that way, when they come to give you your meds, it'll be dark so they won't see you properly. You won't smell like pot, and hopefully they'll just not know. And well, it worked, and then but like so there wasn't as much like drugs and stuff on the unit at CPC 2, but like on like Burgess 1 apparently there was so many drugs. And like Perry 2A also, where my friend was, which is like the high risk unit at the Douglas, where they're inpatients there, and there's about 16 of them there, and my friend has been on that unit a few times. Perry 2A, in the Perry Pavilion on the second floor. And so like there was a funny incident where this friend of my friend told him, "Oh, I want to go escape and go to Toronto and just start over and have nothing to do with this psychiatric stuff anymore and whatever." He was laying it on thick with the like not guilt trip. He was, but the not pity party, but the like not sympathy card, but like laying it on thick with the sob story. That's what I wanted to say, and it was understandable. I mean, anybody would want that. Anyway, this guy told him that, and my friend actually had a lot of money at the time. He had just gotten a bunch of money, so he gave the guy like $400 or something to go to Ottawa or to like Toronto or wherever he wanted to go, but he didn't go. Instead, he bought drugs for everybody else on the unit and got them all stoned. So the whole unit was stoned, and and it was so hilarious. Like apparently, like I wasn't there, but my friend was in there at the time. The friend that got the whole unit stoned by giving the other guy the drugs, and the guy like bought the drugs for them. Now my friend himself, he didn't do drugs and doesn't. He's like Mr. Health Nut kind of, and he was, especially back then. Like now, not so much, but back then he was Mr. Health Nut, and he still doesn't do drugs, but like less of a health nut. But like, and back then, but this guy got like the whole unit stoned. Like everyone, like 16 people are like talking to walls and passed out on the floor and like whatever. And then one of the staff was kind of mad and kind of like calling Matthew's mother, my friend, his mother, saying don't bring him money anymore. He stoned the whole unit. Don't bring money here anymore. And he stoned the whole damn unit. And and then like she didn't bring him money there anymore, but like and then he told me about how they were instituting new, like, I don't know, guidelines or new whatever for people coming in, and I'm thinking, oh shit, man, this is sounding more and more like prison, where they were seriously thinking, like he had either heard or actually experienced, where they were seriously thinking of where when you came in, they would bring you to this part of the like the complex with a big shower room, basically, like in a prison, with multiple, faucets and drains and a hose, and they would hose you down, and they would make you touch yourself to prove that you weren't hiding anything, in yourself or on yourself or anything like that. You would be stark naked. They would disinfect you with like, that powder stuff like Shawshank Redemption, or, hosing you down with disinfectant or whatever. And then, they would, because the big drug problem was making them, feel the need to perhaps start searching people when they came in, because they did not, do that before, at least not like on most of the units. And so they didn't search you when you come in. So, they would search your bags and stuff, and you would have to go through the not go through the metal detector, but they would run a metal detector over you. And that could be worse because it's more accurate, but I mean, if you have any, sometimes they'll confiscate even your pen, or your ID cards if they have sharp parts. But it's like other times they'll just let everything through. It depends on who's having what kind of a day, really. So it, whether the staff are like, the overzealous, type that wish they were, working in a jail or something instead, but they didn't make it, working like that in a place like that. Or, if they're just somebody that, was overly humane and, maternal and, oh, he would never do that, like, so it really depends, like, But I remember when I like was put like on the emergency unit in Reed one for a few days once. Like they confiscated all the pens I had in my pencil case. But they didn't confiscate my ID cards. Now there was this other guy, they confiscated his ID cards, but they let him have a pen. So he gave me a pen secretly, but like because I couldn't write, I was going nuts because I couldn't write. I'm somebody who needs to write and who likes to write, but I couldn't write. I had no pens, and they don't give you like any of those bendy pens. That's like it's a chore just to learn how to write with those, but they didn't give you those like here or anything to write with, so you were screwed. I mean, they would give you something to write with if you did it in front of them in the main area, but like, why, they're busy and why bother? And I don't want to bother anyone and get, I don't know, snapped at or something, you know. So this guy just, secretly gave me a pen. This guy had been, in the military and so maybe they were like confiscating everything of his because, but ironically not his pen for some reason. They confiscated his ID cards, like because they had sharp parts, they said, but like, so like in other words, they were probably just, well, I mean, you can break it in half and use it as a weapon, you can, but they didn't confiscate mine. So like, what's the deal here? Like, it sounds like more like a control tactic than anything, or like a, TSA thing where it's not logical at all. It's like the TSA. It's not logical at all. It's not no consistency, nothing. It's just crazy. It's just like a control thing. So like so like this guy, maybe because he was in the military, they thought, okay, maybe this guy is kind of, good at improvising. We better be sure and, confiscate everything of his, the ID cards, everything, so mm, it was kind of funny, we were just, oh, they confiscated this from me. They confiscated my pen. They confiscated my ID cards. Oh yeah, well, yeah, yeah, oh yeah, well, they confiscated my mascara because it had a sharp part. They confiscated my, they confiscated my pencil. They confiscated my, my phone. Why do you still have yours? Like, it's like nuts. That's nuts, I mean, some of the people working in places like that are nuts, and some of them they think that they're helping people because, oh, I've been there too, I'm nuts. They'll admit it. Others will not admit it, and they want to be treated as sane, and that's why they're there. They want to be seen as, Mr. Sane or Miss Sanity, compared to other people. It makes them feel good about themselves to, be, either looking after or policing other people who are, supposedly less than them, and it's not okay. It's not even okay. People like that, don't need to be in a helping profession, until they, change. I'm not saying it should be a life sentence, that they should be, blackballed. I'm saying they need to wait, and they need to be made to wait if possible. Like if they won't wait themselves, if they won't, if they won't, like, admit who they are right now and say, maybe I shouldn't be in this kind of job because it'll hurt somebody innocent, if I am to, help somebody, but then have a mood one day and, go like this or whatever, and or just, be very dehumanizing towards people. But if they don't admit it, then they're not going to police themselves. So somebody needs to be, saying, no, 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 you have to wait before you, get a job like this, because otherwise it's not going to be good for anybody. So like people, need to, but it should never be like a life sentence, because then why even try? Why do people even, I don't like the idea of, criminal records and, and psychiatric records that seem to be the new criminal record. It's sick. Like your medical record is the new record, because it's a way they can blame you and shame you, and, it's a way they can, ban you from things without them getting blamed for it. And it's a way they can wrong, and even, where they're being, even, glorified and venerated for doing something good for you, supposedly, so it's like they're, they don't get any consequences because they're sneaky about basically giving you a criminal record that's not a criminal record. They're sneaky about it, so they don't get, oversight on them that they deserve and that they need in order for us to, people to maintain their rights and stuff. People have been rejected at the United States border for, attempted suicide, having been picked up at reasons. What in one of the articles? Why do they even, what's the point in even trying to get help if getting help will get you stigmatized? This is one of the reasons why people do not get, help or help, because it's because of this, of things like this. It's because that help could be stigmatizing, or the result of having had help can be stigmatizing and can ruin lives. And that causes worse mental health issues, by the way, on top of everything. And then that gets you stigmatized more. And it's a cycle that we did not cause, yet that we're caught up in, and that we're blamed for somehow causing. And it's not okay. And I'm going to tell you it's not okay. I'm not going to say it's okay. And I'm not going to say it's not happening. It is happening. It's the new criminal record. It's a sneaky criminal record. It's I don't know what to say, but it's a sneaky criminal record is all I know how to say it as. It's a, subtle, covert, like Soviet kind of thing, And I'm not like saying that all communist stuff and all socialist stuff is bad. I'm not one of those people. Like I'm not one of those like, conservative types. Like I'm not one of those people that's just automatically like against helping people, against anything like that. But this is not helping people. This is not good socialism. This is like the kind that's sneaky and that kind of, hurts people to help them and intertwines punishment with, that's why people don't get help. And people are wondering, why didn't so-and-so ask for help? Well, either they were rejected from it, or they were given the runaround, or they were stigmatized to death when they tried to get help, or when they got help, that help was stigmatizing. It was like punitive, or it was, stigmatizing, or whatever. It's like, they treat you like you did something wrong rather than, the way they, treated them at the border, they're those people, and the way they, they treat some people even in mental health facilities, not the Douglas so much, but like other mental health facilities, including some that I've been in other provinces and in like, not in the States really, but like in like other, in British Columbia, for example. And it's like, they treat you like they automatically assume you're there because you did something wrong. And I'm not foolish enough and stupid enough to say shut down, the forensic, mental health facilities, because then the regular jails are just going to get more, mental health patients and stigmatize everyone there. All the mental health patients are treated like, like they're horrible people, and then the other half are going to go to the regular mental facilities, and then they're going to assume that everybody there is, a criminal. And they're going to treat all the mental health patients there as criminals and, be punitive. And that help is more punitive and policing than actual help, and so it does nothing to help them. Just to basically you're, making them feel ashamed of their behavior rather than, helping them. And, or even like, imagining behavior they don't have, or imagining reasons that are not their actual reasons for doing things, or imagining they have no reason, or some stupid reason, or some, dehumanizing reason, or some, very bad and toxic reason, or whatever. And, the reason why people refuse to get help, a lot of it is they could be shot by the police. They could be stigmatized. They could be, stigmatized for life. A lot of those, even my, mental health records, they're going to be there for a lot longer than I will. I mean, they're going to be like, they're going to, still be there and probably still be readable for like centuries. Like, I mean, they keep everything, even at the, like, maybe especially at the Douglas, I don't know, but they keep them. I mean, there's one whole room that, like, there was one, a woman who was a PAB there, a préposé bénéficiaire, who was that's like basically an aide, basically not a psych tech so much, but it operates as one. Like in the States, they have psychiatric technicians, but she's basically an orderly, and they act as psych techs in the psych ward. So like she told me about, because they all seem to know the history. It's like kind of funny. Like she told me about how there's a whole room, like it's like because the whole like complex is like a historical kind of place where, and there's a whole room dedicated to just one patient, full of files of just one patient who was born and died at the Douglas, apparently. And like, so this woman was born to a patient at the Douglas. She spent her whole life in the Douglas as a patient herself and died there. So, and this was like, a century ago or whatever, 2 centuries ago, whatever. But, the fact that they would still keep that, yeah, okay, it's historical artifacts, but maybe I don't want my stuff to be historical artifacts. Maybe I'm not consenting to this, And, I'm not saying wipe everything out, man, but come on. It's just, I don't consent to, what about while I'm still alive? It gets used against you, and then you can't have help. everything you say will be used against you, just like when you're getting arrested. And it's not good. It's not okay. Even it's not necessary. It's not. It does harm. It doesn't do good. It does harm. I'm not going to say it does more harm than good, because that insinuates that it does some good that makes it worth it somehow in some way, and it doesn't. And But back to the whole, when you intertwine help with punishment, that is where stigma is. That is where stigma starts. That's the very point at which stigma starts, and the very definition of stigma. When help becomes punitive, and punishment becomes, when you use help as punishment, or punishment as help, or you treat them like they're the same thing, that is stigma. And that is why people do not, refuse help sometimes, because it's not help. And people need to realize that and stop dehumanizing people, for refusing help, supposedly, as though they have no good reason for doing so, or no reason, or as though they're just doing it, I don't know, for some stupid, I don't know, who the fuck knows why, And sometimes we do know why they're, assuming what they're assuming about us. And it's nothing nice. It's nothing humanizing, even. And, but, and this just started out as just a, review of the Douglas, but now it's turning into just, the mental health system in general in, like, North America, and in just really all over the world. It's just turning into that, because, like, so, but, like, the whole help as punishment thing, I'm not stupid enough to, and punishment as help thing, I'm not stupid enough, and I could go on about, like, horror stories about places that I've talked to survivors of, certain places, like in Massachusetts, I think where I'm talking about. I've talked to people who actually were survivors of that place that was in Mother Jones, and they this place was featured in Mother Jones as a horror show, and it was. And I've actually talked to survivors of that place, in the autistic community and the bipolar community. Like, I've talked to people who were there as students in that school, and the pain was actually the supposedly meant as the help. And I'm not going to go into it anymore, because I had a channel years ago, and it was, hacked into and shut down for, I don't know, it was probably by them. They probably got someone to do that. So I'm not going to mention their name yet, so, but, there was, but now back to the whole, oops, but like back to the whole, I'm just so passionate. I'm just, not even knowing where I put my hand. So I just rip it right out. But like, back to the whole point of this, like, where stigma is, where help is treated as punishment and punishment as help, and they get intertwined, and that's where stigma is. And but it's just so wrong. Like, it's not even okay. It's dehumanization, and dehumanization, there's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for abuse. And it is abuse when it's dehumanization. That is the worst thing you can do to someone. I'd rather anything happen to me than anything dehumanizing. Obviously, we would all rather anything happen to us than anything dehumanizing. I mean, it's unless it's like something like so painful, so physically painful, that like it, gets us dehumanized in some other way too, But you know what I mean. But like, what kind of a Sophie's choice is that, though? To have to like make a choice like that. Nobody should have to, but and like nobody has any right to make that choice for anybody else, regardless, because everybody's emotions are real. Nobody's emotions can be incompetent or incapable or crazy or mentally ill. I mean, an emotion is just an emotion. It's a feeling, and it's real. And what you prefer is what you prefer, no matter how crazy you are. So I don't believe in the whole, people should have every little choice made for them. That's just disgusting. And we see this, in the place that I talk to the survivors of, where they have that attitude of these people shouldn't be allowed to control even, anything, including, where they stand, how they sit, anything. It's really, really bad there. Like, I've talked to survivors firsthand of that place, and it's really bad there. All the rumors about it were right. Like, and until, like, also there were, ex-staff members that went rogue and talked about it, themselves, how horrible it is. And they even admit a lot of the torture they do to people there. But anyway, that's another story. I'll talk about it some other time. Like, not here. Just, I'm going to talk about, like, other stuff here that's more relevant to this. But, I mean, it's not relevant, but you know what I mean. But when punishment and help become, the same thing, why would anyone want to get help? What are you going to do? Force them in some punitive way? it becomes criminal to be mentally ill. It becomes criminal to be, any neurodivergent. It becomes criminal to be traumatized. What kind of a life is that, where you're having this done to you? And what kind of a person, like, are you acting like when you're doing this to, somebody? And I know it must be people that are, in horrible pain themselves, because if they're doing that to people, then they've got to be in horrible pain themselves. I mean, I'm not the asshole whisperer, but I empathize with everybody here, but I'm not the asshole whisperer either. And I have feelings too, and I have the right to, express negative feelings too. And I'm not the, dehumanizer whisperer. I'm not the torturer whisperer. I'm a person. I have the right to be outraged, even if it's not something that happened to me personally. And some of it was, some of it wasn't, but, the big stuff wasn't for the most part. So, but it happened to other people, either people I know or people I talk to or people I just, heard about and read about or read from, on the internet, whatever. And I've seen it, some kind of less humanizing things happen to other people, firsthand, but I saw it happening to them, but it didn't happen to me or anyone I knew, but still I saw it happening to them. And that's like a secondary trauma kind of in a way. And, because you think, well, they could do this to me if I act that way too. And, it's wrong in its own right, just for them doing this to somebody at all, doing this to them, because they're a person too. And they're just treating them like they're not. And, like somehow it doesn't hurt them, or somehow it shouldn't hurt them, and then they're being punished for being a person. But then when they stop acting like a person, like somebody who's hurt by it, then they get told, everybody gets told, see, it doesn't bother them. They're not sentient. Look, they're not reacting to it, but they're punished for reacting to it. It's like that. It's not like that, like at, most places I've been, but like, it's a culture in this society, and if we don't watch it, we're gonna go there. And some people even go there in the best places, and they don't last long generally at the Douglas when they act that way. They get fired or whatever. But maybe that's just my experience. Maybe there's some places there that's not so kosher. I do not know either way, because I got lucky in that particular place. I got lucky, but a lot of people don't get so lucky, and they end up in like situations where they're dehumanized like really really bad, like and believe me, it's really really bad, any level of dehumanization. So I shouldn't be saying it that way maybe, but any level of dehumanization is not mild, because it's dehumanization. It cannot be mild by its very definition. And if you're dehumanized, it's not mild, and it's not a minor thing. Otherwise it wouldn't be dehumanization. It would be something else. It would be an inconvenience. It would be something else, and but anyway, like, it's funny how this video evolved from it evolved from like me just talking about my experience and about what it's like to see a psychiatrist at the Douglas, to this manifesto about the mental health system in North America and really all over the world. And especially in like supposed first world countries and second world countries, and some third world countries obviously, but like it's some people make the observation that the mentally ill are the last people to get justice. Even it seems like people, well, maybe it's a smaller population, but it's not. People just aren't admitting they are, because they think it's a smaller population and that nobody's going to identify with them, and that therefore they're not going to get justice. They're just going to get locked away or something, and that's not even okay. Like, to make us believe that about they're trying to keep people isolated, because they want people to believe that they'll be treated as crazy if they rise up, and that nobody's ever going to believe them again in their whole life. And it shouldn't have to ruin somebody's life. It shouldn't have to ruin your life. And in the States, you can't become, this kind of job or that kind of job if you've ever had, ever seen a psychiatrist, ever seen a psychologist, ever had a mental health record of some sort. Just even if it's not anything to do with the police or criminals or crime, even if it's just you've seen a psychiatrist, or you've even ever been a patient in a mental institution. It's like you can't like be a nurse in some places unless or they can just reject you on their own, whatever, where they wouldn't before, just because you were once a inpatient. And like it's almost like they think that you're less capable of looking after your own kind if you are that kind. It's so sick. It's like they think that we're a disease rather than a type. Like, like they think that people, are it's like the incompetence model of, assuming about, certain types of people or certain groups or certain whatever. It's not okay, and it's an ism, just like racism, sexism, ageism, ableism. It's an ism, just like all of them. Saneism, or whatever some people call it. Um, and I don't know, but I have a lot to say, obviously, and sometimes I don't know how to say it, but a lot of the time I do now, and I'm glad I do. Because I'm finally getting it out. And, I did before to an extent, but a lot of the time I was just rambling and ranting and didn't really know how to explain it. And I certainly wouldn't know how to explain it without having, written it down for hours and hours and still not getting it right. And that's how alexithymia steals your voice. And nobody even picked that up about me, until one psychologist, actually, the one that I had, Michael Bodner, the good one, he, one of the good ones. I mean, I had some good ones, but he was one of the best ones, just like Scott Duncan in Alberta. And anyway, Michael, mentioned alexithymia. I'm like, yeah, I do have that, And it's funny that none of them mentioned imposter syndrome, because that is such a relevant thing to me that it's not even, a joke. Yet none of them, they just skipped over that I had that, issue. They didn't care, or they didn't know, or they didn't care to know, or know to care. And that's kind of, they dropped the ball here. I kind of resent them for it, whatever. And yeah, I should have spoke up for myself, blah blah blah. But I mean, aren't they supposed to kind of read between the lines? Isn't that their job? But how much of their job is to read between the lines? Like, it depends on what their job is. Is it to read between the lines? But how far? I don't know. Whether, like how far they, should be reading between the lines. How much of it is their job, and how much of it is just they can't help it, or, it's our job or whatever to explain it. But, you know they should be reading between the lines, and they read between the lines about all the wrong stuff, and they read stuff that isn't there between the lines. So they need to be reading what's really between the lines. They need to be humanizing people, because everything that people do is for a human reason, not for a pathological reason. But that's no reason, or some dumb reason, because there's no such thing as a dumb reason or no reason. Okay, like, people are humans. People have everything we do, every little thing that everything everyone has ever done has been for a, a psychological reason, for a human reason. It's been for, perfectly logical reason, perfectly loving and emotional reason, perfectly, socially conscious and social reason, perfectly, intellectual reason, and perfectly, basically perfectly logical reason, and perfectly, spiritual reason even. It's not, for no reason, and it's not for some reduced reason or lesser reason. That is not even possible. Yet here they are, acting like that and dehumanizing people, making people sick, like making people not, mentally, sane or whatever. Like, they're not helping. A lot of the time, a lot of, mental health places and professionals make people worse. And that's no secret or anything, but people, so many are still wondering, well, why doesn't so and so get help? But yet in the same sentence, they'll be like, I'm not crazy. Why would I see a psychiatrist? It's like they have these double standards that they apparently don't even know they have. Yet it's right there in their face, and they're not noticing it. They're not noticing their own double standards, because they think that it shouldn't hurt someone who's really mentally ill, but it would hurt them because they're sane. In other words, mentally ill people don't feel as much as they do. Like, what? Or don't notice, like, as much that they're, being treated like they're not sane. That's so othering, it's not even okay. And I don't mean to be shaming people. I don't want to be shaming people, because shaming people is wrong. I mean, nobody deserves to be shamed. I mean, people have reasons for what they do. It's not just like no reason and I need to be shaming you. People need love, not a lecture. And that's like a big problem too, where, I've been lectured. A lot of the time I do lecture, and I'm doing that now sometimes, because I was lectured rather than loved a lot of the time, and I was judged rather than, accepted as a human being for that whatever I did was for human reasons or whatever. Like, instead I was just judged as doing it for no good reason or whatever, saying this or not saying that for no good reason, or they didn't care, about me. They just cared about whatever, one of the big mistakes we make as human beings is to focus on, like, not loving who we're with, as in talking to the person, like empathizing with the person who's right in front of us. Instead, we start empathizing with the people we fear might be that person's victims. But we all have victims, and that's what we're not realizing, that we all have victims. We all make mistakes, and we all have victims. And the only way to stop the cycle of having victims is to stop creating more victims of ourselves by, you know, accusing the other person of having victims when we ourselves have victims. Aside from them, we have victims too. We're not perfect. We do dehumanizing things to each other. And it's not that we can, we have to, catch ourselves and stop it when we, can. But when we don't, we have to be ready to make amends for it, and not, not like in a way that like ruins our lives. I mean, nobody deserves their life ruined like that, but you know what I mean? A way that actually compensates, because they don't want you to cry over it. They want you to apologize to them. They want you to treat them like a person from now on, and to, know that you're going to treat them like a person from now on. It's not that they want you to cry over it or feel like shit about it, because that's about us. Because when we feel like shit about things, that's about us. That's not about them. And it's about how shitty we are rather than about how human they are. And the whole issue is how we didn't treat them like they were human. The issue isn't about how we didn't, treat ourselves shitty enough. That's not the point here. So the point isn't to make people feel bad. And there was a social worker at the Douglas actually that gave me some papers on shame and guilt, and that, explained it in a way I never knew how to explain it, because like I knew it, but yet I was still kind of confused about it, but like about how, remorse is not guilt or shame. Guilt and shame is just useless. I mean, it's just, it makes people feel bad and it ruins lives, whereas remorse is about the other person, not about, the person we hurt, and about how they deserve better from now on, and they deserve to have it proved to them that they're gonna, get better from us from now on, not, about us feeling like shit and being punished and, all that crap, because we don't deserve, no. Well, how's it going to help anybody to punish us and make us feel like shit? What they really want, even the people that say so-and-so needs to die for what they did, what they really want is just for that person to learn and to treat them like a person from now on. That's what they want. That's not what they don't want the person dead, really. They just want the person to, treat them like a person from now on, or, treat who they, harmed like a person from now on, and, prove that now they see them as a person. It's not what we, what we think sometimes, like that, in that way, like it's better than that, and it's better news than that. And like, because like, I mean, we all we all like, struggle with the shame and guilt thing, because we forget in this judgmental society that it's not about that. It's about being humanized, and the bottom line is about humanizing each other. It's not about and being humanized by each other. It's about, everybody's a human being, including us, including them, all of, him and her and that one over there, everyone, It's not about, who's to blame. And it's not about how much they should be blamed and how they should be punished and anything like that. Like, it's not about that. And then another, interesting thing here is that when you get raised in a way where the only punishment, the only, like, not punishment, not consequence, but the only, discipline you've ever had has been dehumanizing, then you start to equate discipline with dehumanization, and then you start to be against discipline in general, and that just ends up opening a whole bunch of awfulness, itself, where we don't want to, even, go there and admit we did anything wrong, because we think we're going to be dehumanized for it ourselves. And our like survival instinct kicks in, where we end up having like a panic attack just thinking about, if somebody finds us out, oh my God, if we get caught, oh my God, it's going to be, the death of us. It's going to be, ruining our lives. And where we don't want to, admit to anything, because we think we're going to get dehumanized for it, and that will be the end of our lives. And that ends up where we do terrible things, to people, and we keep doing it just to hide it all, and it's an endless cycle until somebody breaks it, which eventually it does get broken, the cycle, but it takes a lot sometimes, and, a lot of people end up even dying over, things like this, in the world, where that's all the problems in the world right there. All the problems in the universe is dehumanization. It's depression, really, the same thing, and I've made a point where, capitalism is depression. I mean, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it really depends, like, on what the definitions of stuff in that, obviously, but that's another can of worms, so maybe I'll go there somewhere some other time. But where toxic capitalism is definitely depression. It's the idea that some people have to be better than others in order to survive, and have to be, other people have to be inferior and worse and treated as less in order for anyone at all to survive. Like, no. That is taking it way too far. Like, I'm sorry. That is taking it, well, I'm not sorry, but that is taking it way too far. And, it's just, like, all of this is related to the psychiatry stuff, so that's why I guess I'm, explaining it like, you know, um, that's why I'm explaining it like that. Because otherwise, like I wouldn't be expressing it like to the extent that I need to, that I feel I need to, that I feel people need to hear. And I hope I wasn't too judgmental because I don't want to be judgmental. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to be here. It's the opposite of what I'm trying to do here. It's the opposite of I don't want to be dehumanizing anybody. By lecturing them instead of loving them. I don't want to be doing that, and I hope I didn't. Like I don't know. Like if I did, then I'm sorry. Like I mean, I'm really sorry. I apologize. Like really, I do not want to hurt anybody. To the point where they feel like they're being lectured rather than loved, like they're being treated like a robot that needs to be reprogrammed rather than a person that needs to, be shown humanization in order to know, how to remember how to, humanize others, and that the merits of humanizing others and of being, because they understand the merits of being humanized. Like I don't even want to like I don't want to go back to you know all of that, like having forgotten all that and everything. No, because that is hell. That's how you live in hell on earth. It's where forget it. You're made to forget it, under threat, where if you remember, you're treated dehumanizingly. Because you're not allowed to remember that that the only way out of it is to admit, like, everybody deserves humanization, and you yourself, and who's gonna, like, how's that gonna hurt you to admit that, when you just figure out who you want to, be around and everything usually. And I know some people are in situations where they can't do that. They're forced to be around certain people. They're forced to be in certain situations and that. And, that's why we need to help them get out of those situations. And I guess that's why I'm, talking about all this, because I know some people are stuck either by their reputation preceding and destroying them, which is shouldn't, because that's just wrong. Letting, doing that to people. Like, nobody is the worst thing they ever did. I know you've heard that before, but nobody is. And nobody is even the sum of the worst of all the bad things they did. What about everything else? Everybody is way more than that. Like, this is ridiculous the way people, want to simplify others, and that's dehumanizing, where they oversimplify, who somebody is, and then, they end up typecasting them in the worst way, and it's not even okay. I know I keep saying that, but a lot of things are not even okay, like, to do. And we can't help it do things that aren't okay sometimes, but we need to, you know, try and stop. I know we're all going to make the mistakes, and it's like, oh, God made us, made us flawed, and then pasted it in, and then blamed us for the flaws he put in us, and all that stuff that you might be saying, and I've said too sometimes, and that's why I'm not for ruining people's lives over, stuff that they couldn't help, and that, that they're not always going to be like, because, everything evolves, and, we learn and grow and everything. It's not, so, mm, it's just, mm, like, I don't know, I forget what I was going to say there, but it wasn't important, really. But maybe I should just start another one, like make another video continuing all this, because this one is long enough. I mean, this one is over an hour now, and I need to stop talking, and I don't know. I need to, like, I don't know, not change the subject, but I just need to maybe take a chill pill. Like, you really, I'm going off topic. That's not a problem. It's a good thing, because I know that I think that was actually the most necessary video I ever made. Like, everything else was just kind of okay, it's there, it's great, but anyway, I'll shut up now, and I'll see you soon.